Hello everyone. In this video we'll try to understand what is Swagger and how can we use Swagger for documenting our REST APIs. So let's get started. Like how this particular video is divided. Like first, as I said, we'll try to understand what is Swagger, why we need Swagger, and we'll see how can we run a Swagger in a container, and then build a simple Python Flask REST API, deploy in a container, and write a Swagger file for that particular REST API which we are building using Swagger editor, and how can we connect those Swagger files to the Swagger UI to understand the our REST APIs in a better way, right? So to start with, first, what is Swagger? So Swagger is a built on open API specification. It's like a blueprint for your REST APIs. So it tells you what API does, how to use it, and what to expect in return. So this make it easy for developers to understand how to use the API, and it also makes it easier for the other developers to create tools that work with other APIs. So it says in a very short, Swagger is used to document your REST APIs or typically any APIs. So let's just try to understand what I mean by you know uh, documentation. Let's say I'm building a simple application like a calculator application. Let's not make things complex. I'm building a calculator application. So I have an addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, whatnot. I have some couple of APIs. Now I'm building it, and obviously maybe it need to be consumed from a web application, or maybe some other X team may use it in any other form. So obviously I need to provide them the documentation, right? So how about this? Maybe if I can make it in a better way, maybe like this, it's cool, right? So you have a rich UI. It says, this is about the calculator application. Not just that, you just expand this. Okay, what it does is it does addition. It says like we'll add two values. Did you see this? This is a sample request. Not just that, you click on try it out, and yes, you can test your REST API here itself. Let me click on execute. Did you see? I got a response. 3 plus 2 equal to 5. That's so cool, right? Now, from this to this makes lots of sense for the developers who wants to consume use the REST APIs, right? That's so cool, right? And yes, that's what we are going to cover. Now, by now you might have understand what are the benefits of a Swagger, right? It makes it easier to understand how API works, as we just seen here, right? Like what is the URI of this, right? And what is the sample request? If you trigger it, what is the sample response you get, right? There's so many features which we are going to discuss, right? And it can help improve the documentation of APIs. Of course, it's this is this is far better than the traditional way of documenting, right? And it can also use to generate a code that consumes or produce data from API. We'll also see that what it mean by it, right? It can help automate the testing of APIs. We'll also see that how it can help, right? And when to use, by now you must have understand when to use Swagger, right? a, like we might use Swagger to document if I have a public APIs and I want to make it public, as I said, right, that anyone can make use of it. So with this, yes, it's simple to use, right? And as a team, like I'm building some APIs where some other team members want to consume it. Instead of this, I'll give them this. It will be easier, right, for them to understand. So yeah, the couple of real-time use case just support my previous statement. Like let's say for example you're building a micro services, right? Let's say item API is one of the service where internally I have 4 to 5 different microservices, right? So now I can effectively document it, and I can share these links to whoever wants to consume those APIs. So as you said, like I'm building a complex web application where I have hundreds of microservices, right? Like say for example, I'm building a e-commerce website. These are couple of, right, like items, like get items, adding, deleting, updating, whatnot. Like you want to know about the price, payment. There's so hundreds of APIs, right? Let's say for example, when you talk about the particular module called uh, relate, I mean item API, right? So here, you have 4 to 5 different microservices. So now using Swagger, it will be very easy for the end user. When I say end user, who is going to consume your APIs, easy for them to understand, decode your APIs instead of they bug you, every time, what is the sample request? I gone through this documentation. Can you tell me how can I test it? No. Here, done, right? So that's the best way of Swagger. So as I said, we'll take a simple example. Uh, Maybe yes, as I said, a simple calculator application, right? So it is. I'm using a Flask as usual. So we also obviously need to use cores. I'll tell you why we need to use cores in some time, right? If you see, what it does is it's doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and there is one more guy. What this guy does, looks like it is reading some file and sending a response, right? Now this is what the file that we are going to target now. Now yes, I think, yeah, as I just shown, uh, yeah, how did I come to this screen, right? Obviously, and for that I need to write some file, and that we call it Swagger file. And yeah, do you think I'm definitely not comfortable with writing this complicated JSON file? So many flower brackets, definitely not. But yes, Swagger has a beautiful tool called Swagger Editor. So if you see here, uh, I just paste this here. Did you see? We got it. That's so nice, right? In case I got one more API, just copy this sample, just say enter and say paste. Uh, yeah, of course, there's a duplication. So instead of say add, I'll just say addition. You can see it here, right? So there is A and B here. I'll say D and E. Did you see that was so quick, right? Now, hope you understand. We will just try to decode the structure. What exactly is path, services, info. We'll decode everything. Don't worry about that. But first, we'll see how can we'll connect. So when I say connect, this particular Swagger file with our Swagger UI so that we can see it, right? So as I said, right? So let's say if you see this is a calculator application, right? So where it has a different microservices, like one of the microservices addition, the other one is subtraction, right? Now, as I just shown you using Swagger editor how easy to edit your REST API documentation, right? So now I want to deploy this. Obviously, the best way is like a containers, right? I have a Docker file. In case if you guys are not familiar about what is Docker, how to use Docker, I already made a video. I'll keep that link in the description. Please watch that. So yes, this is a simple Docker file, and this is my Flask REST API, and this is a Swagger, and this is the requirement.txt file. Whenever you run your containers, whenever you build your image, so all this will be packed, right, and create as an image. So I'm using a Podman here. Like this is one of the alternative tool for your Docker desktop. So yes, if you see, my container is already running here, and this is the container for uh, what do you call, for your Swagger UI. So whatever you see here, that's is actually deployed in this particular container, right? How to come to this? It's very, very simple. You just need to install a Docker or a Podman. In my case, I'm using Podman. I started liking it, so yeah. So, in case if you are using Docker, you have to install it first, obviously. Run this command. Once it pulls the image and run this particular command. That's it. Your Swagger UI will be up and running, right? In case if you want to try Podman like me, instead of Docker, you just say Podman. That's it. So rest everything behind the screen is the same magic, right? So now, yeah, that's how you can. Oh, I'm sorry. That's how you can run your Swagger from a container, right? So whenever you open the Swagger UI, the first thing you see is the pet store. This is a sample example from the Swagger team, right? We'll discuss this. Now, I need to connect to my Swagger document, right? That's what the point of discussion now, right? So now, as you see, I said one strange guy here, right? And this guys read this Swagger file and give me as a JSON structure, right? And if you see, I'm also including that Swagger file as part of my container, right? So let me run this. Localhost, I think it's 5111. Did you see? Cool, right? Now let me copy this URL and paste it here and just say enter. That's it. So now your Swagger UI connected to uh, your calculator application, right? Similarly, let's say I have what you call some other application, maybe something related to statistics. Just for the sake of example, I already have it. Let me run this. I'll say stats, and as I said, don't worry about this. Watch my video, it will be very clear. So similarly, I have one more container running where I have the basic statistics file, related logic. So it runs on port. Okay, I gave it another way. I'm sorry. Let me delete this and rerun. Oh, where are you guys? Where is stats? Yes. stats, and host port is 5002. The container port is 999. And here, if I say 2, oh, sorry. Yes, we got the other one. Copy this URL, paste it here. That's it. Did you see? So like it's give an average. You can just click on try it out, and you say 2. Average, right? 2 plus 2 divided by 2 is equal to 2. Am I right? Yes. Oh yeah, there's something wrong with the response, but you guys understand the concept, right? It says some course error. It's because, yes, I said we are going to discuss about this, right? Let me open this stats Python code. Give me a minute, please. Where is it? Stats, yes. Oh, it has cars enabled. That's strange. But why is it coming like this? We'll try for a mode. Just try it out. Execute. Just check in the containers if we are getting any errors. There's no error. I will just try for the. I think we already tried for addition, right? Try it out. Execute. Yes, we got a response. Subtraction 1 minus 2 minus 1. That makes sense. Let's not try to debug, but the intention of this video is to make sure you understand, the benefits of Swagger, right? But again, as I said, right, so in a given project, let's say for example, you take an example of e-commerce itself, right? There are so many modules like this, get API, price, payments. What I just shown is three. As I said, there will be so many, right? And for item API, as I said, I have four APIs here. And now for this four APIs, I'll have a separate documentation. And this for the four APIs, I'll have a separate documentation. So, like for each documentation, we'll have one URL as you shown here. If you see 5002 is stats, if I say 5001, it's like a calculator application you can see here, right? So similarly, for each module, you can have a separate Swagger file, or for all the modules, you can have a single Swagger file. It's up to you. Like it's totally depend on project to project, but I personally prefer to have a separate Swagger file for each module, right? So there are some advanced configurations, right, like where you can create a drop down here, right? Instead of localhost 5002, you can say stats, right? For 5001, you can see calculator, right? There are some configuration that can be achieved, right? But ultimate goal is, hope you understand the benefits of using Swagger, right? And yes, I before we close this, I would like to explain you what are the different components that a Swagger file has, right? So this is the, as I said, this is the pet store, a sample Swagger file that provides by the Swagger itself, right? So let me see what are the couple of components we have in a Swagger file. Like, let me minimize all this cool stuffs. Right. Now start with info. This is a very basic, like it says like what this particular module does. A brief introduction about this particular module, right? And then we have external documents. In case if you have any external documentation, you can refer this. And then you have servers. So this is very important. So to make it more clear, let me, yes, did you see servers here? Maybe I'll copy this. No, not required. Here you can see, right? So if you see, like I have a dev, I have a prod, like that, you can configure, right? For dev, it's 5001, for example, and for prod, it's 5003. It's about, you can mention, three different environments you have and the three different respective URLs to do it, right? Let's say for example, now it behind the screens it hits 5001. Let's say if I'm just change to 5003, I'm not sure what happened, something wrong, but it usually select 5003 and hits, you know, uh, 5003, right? But ideally, I'm not sure why it is not getting selected, but yes, uh, you understand it, right? That's what the servers refers to, right? Here in that case, you have only one. That's why in the drop down you see only one, right? And then tags. These tags are pretty cool. If you remember, I told, right, like I can write a single Swagger file for all these three modules, or I can write one Swagger file for each of this module. For item API, one Swagger; for price, one Swagger; payment, one Swagger file, right? So in case if I am writing a single Swagger file for all these modules, how can I differentiate it? And that's where the tags comes in place. So here I can say item API, price API, and what is the other one? Yeah, the payment API, right? And this is the path. This is the major part, right? You see, I said pet. When I say pet, this is what your typical URI. Like for example, for addition, I'll say add, and this is the add which we are referring to here. In this case, it is pet, right? And what is this? This is actually your uh, rest method. For this pet, right, is actually deployed. This pet resource is using a put method, right? And as I said, when I say tags, it falls under pet, right? Did you see here how many tags we have? Pet, store, user, right? You can see it here. This is pet. Under the pet we have relevant APIs. Under the store we have relevant. Under the user we have relevant APIs, right? So you can consider pet as one module, store as another module, user as another module, right? So that's how you can refer. Let's say if I say this pet, I change this tag as an user. Did you see the pet comes under user, right? When I say it as a pet itself, it came out and went under the pet. Now you understand the power of tags, right? So here you can, I'm sorry, the brief about what is the summary, right? And what is the description. And this operation ID is a unique ID, it's not mandatory. And then we are talking about your request body, right? And you can give the description for your request body as well, right? You have two descriptions here, one on a very high level, another the description to your request body. When I say request body, your request structure that your API is expecting, and what kind of content it expects. It is expecting a JSON. It can also expect an XML, right? And this is the request body, right? Similarly, you'll also have a response, right? So you can define this 200 is a status code, what is the description, right? Again, in the response, you can get an XML or you can get an JSON. You can also, define an error codes like 400, 500, whatnot, right? So this is how in a given REST API, a request body and the response body you can define. There is some beautiful thing that you can see here, schema, right? We'll discuss that. Did you see? I'm sorry. This is a sample request that this particular REST API expects. Where did I define this? And that's why there is another beautiful thing called components. Under schemas, I defined it, right? And if you see this particular path, under components, under schemas, it is referring to pet, right? Components, schemas, pet. Under components, under schemas, right? It is referring to what? Pet. We'll see that. Did you see? It is referring to pet. Did you see? It says required. So it is saying the name and photo URLs, which is this name and this photo URL, are mandatory as part of your request, right? And then we are defining a property. When I say property, ID is one of the request that it is expecting, right? And the type is integer, the format is this, and I'm giving a sample data here. That's so cool, right? Now you understand from where this value is coming from, right? It is coming from your components. Similarly, you see name, it is string, and I said doggy. That's an example. Maybe I'll say doggy, right? You can see it is like reflecting. I just wanted to show, these values are coming from here. And you have a category, and the category is again a dictionary. It is referring to some other component. That is so nice, so that this category can be reused, right? And you see there's a category here. Now again, as usual, what is the type is object. You are defining the property for this ID, like the metadata. For name, the type is string, example is dog. Now we also have a concept called reusability. Now this category can be used by some other, for example, API as well. For example, tags, right? Did you see tag? It is also referring to another component schema. And you can also see the schema structure here. So of course, right? Obviously, As a developer, I won't prefer to see this, right? My intention is to explain you how the Swagger file looks like, right? You can click on the schema here and you can see it. Did you see? For the name and photo URLs, it says mandatory, right? Because when I'm defining this schema, I said under the required, I said name and photos URLs are mandatory. That's why it says star. So how convenient it is for the developer now, right? That's so nice, right? So yeah, hope you understand the Swagger file and its the different components. The other point which I wanted to cover is this one. It can be used to generate the code. In my opinion, that it doesn't help much, right? But I just wanted to show you that there is such kind of option. So you can say generate client. Where is Python? You click on the Python. It will generate a Python code that actually calls this REST APIs. I can quickly show you that. Let me pull this here. Downloads. Yes. Come on, man. Yes. Yeah. Did you see you have test pet, test tag? It generates the documentation to it, right? But as I said, I don't feel this is that much helpful. Did you see? It also created a class that refers to your tag. But at certain point, it helps in case if you want to strictly define your schema structure as part of your Python code. It helps. So because in case if you want to define the similar schema structure as part of your Python, so instead of you rewrite this is so cool, right? So this actually helps me. For example, if I want to send a text, right? With this, with the help of this, I can define the structure, right? But again, it's I mean, a person to person. But I personally feel it is doesn't make sense, right? So I think this is what I wanted to cover as part of this video. Hope you enjoyed. So we had a good learning on Swagger. So we'll see you in the next exciting video. Thank you.